we need more mats? I think they're all right, aren't they? Do fill in the spaces, but sit on chairs if you want to, have more mats if you want to. And we can make a third row if we need. Do we need a few more mats, do you think, Andrew?
I think so, yeah. Very much move back. Yeah.
Let's get you. It was very nice to see so many of you here in our strange in-between week. And welcome to those of you who are here online too. And we'll just start by standing and saluting the shrine in call and response. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Dhammaya. Namo Dhammaya. Namo Sanghaya. Namo Sanghaya. Namo Namah. Namo So I'm leading the class this week, and I was last week, and I thought of it as a kind of like a little sort of two-part project of what it is that gets in the way of us meditating, what blocks us in meditation, what obstructs us in meditation, and why that is extremely important. So it starts with one of my most favourite quotations from the early Buddhist scriptures when the Buddha describes the mind. So there'll be some repeats for those of you who were here last week. Don't worry, you can hear this several thousand times and you still don't get it. Okay, luminous, O monks, is the mind, but it is defiled by adventitious defilements. Luminous, O monks, is the mind, but it is defiled by adventitious defilements. He says it 3 times. Luminous, O monks, is the mind, but it is defiled by adventitious defilements. In other words, obstructions and things arise which get in the way of the luminosity of the mind, or rigpa, if you like. So what we've got here is an opportunity in these 2 weeks to look at, well, what gets in the way. So last week we were looking at what I call the 5 friends, but more traditionally they're known as the 5 hindrances, which get in the way in meditation. But one of the things we found was that they don't only get in the way in meditation, but actually if you find yourself in meditation being distracted by anxiety or restlessness, or its opposite, laziness or lethargy, it's very likely that those distractions are there in your normal life as well. So basically what comes up in meditation is likely to be something that comes up in life in general. So do take time, make yourself comfortable, find a mat, get a blanket if you want one. It's quite warm in here. So last week, as I said, we were looking at the 5 hindrances in particular, how they affect us in meditation. And this week, we're going a little bit deeper into the emotional tendencies of the mind. In other words, what we call the kleshas, the obscurations of the mind. And this is perhaps a little bit of a later teaching than the teaching of the 5 hindrances, which is actually in the Buddha Vacha, in the earliest writings that we have from the Buddhist tradition. So the kleshas and the aspects of the clouding of the mind that I'm alluding to tonight are much more likely to come from the Abhidharma, from the later recension of Buddhist history. Not that that matters terribly. The fact is that they're obstructions and we know them and we recognize them. But how to work with them, of course, is what needs to be looked at. So, have you got a mat there and cushions and everything? Yeah? Okay. Well, can you just check that you're all comfortable? And what we're going to do is we'll start off with a short, really a settling meditation for 7 or 8 minutes. And then I'll say a little bit more about the content of the evening. So this is simply just to help us to arrive. So please go and get a blanket, get more cushions if you need it. It's so important to be comfortable. The main meditation will be the Metta Bhavana, but to start with, I'll lead us in body relaxation kind of awareness meditation. So as you're busy settling, as you're finding your position, your meditation posture, already you're addressing yourself to your experience in this moment. You're noticing, oh, my left leg's bothering me. Oh, I'm feeling a bit sleepy, or oh, whatever it is you're noticing. And now I invite you to allow your attention to rest in your sitting bones. Whatever they're in contact with, bring your mind to bear on the experience in your sitting bones. You might just notice, oh, I'm sitting more on the left side than the right. Just get curious about it. What's happening here is that you are allowing your mind to go into your physical reality, coming out of your head, you could say. Noticing what's happening right down in the place where you contact the earth. Your sitting bones and your legs and feet, wherever they're in contact with the ground, or the cushion or the mat. And really enjoy the rest, the peacefulness of simply being with your body, just being with this grounded aspect of your physical experience. And of course the mind will wander off, and you bring it back again and again to where you're in contact with the ground. And there's always a little bit more that can happen here. You might even find in some postures you can apply a little bit of pressure to the cushion or the ground, really deeply connecting with the support of whatever it is you're sitting on, or wherever your legs are resting. And it's probably quite helpful to close your eyes And as you do that, you internalize all the sense organs and the sense impressions that pour in to your experience through your eyes, and somehow by connection through your ears. Allowing your senses to let go. All that information, just for now, centering more on your internal experience. Perhaps you can sense around the heart center or the navel some vibration, some aliveness, a fizzy kind of feeling some of us get, as though you're sensing the pulsing of life in yourself. Maybe heartbeat or other pulses. So noticing any sensations on the inside of your body. Just allowing yourself to be curious, a bit fascinated maybe. And see if you can bring your attention back to that grounded sense of the sitting bones. And from that base, you can take your attention up the spinal column, from the ground through the center of the torso. Noticing the shoulders slipping down the back, your collarbone across, your neck above, and your head resting on the top of the neck. Now letting the face be soft, the jaw released, the tongue resting on the ground of your mouth. Your eyebrows moving away from each other. The face relaxed and open, not needing to have any expression right now. Finally, noticing any sensation in the palms of the hands, any tingling, letting the hands be really empty. No need for any activity in the hands right now. And to end this short arrival practice, connecting with your whole self being here, and the fact that all the way through your body has been breathing without changing anything, Becoming aware of the touch of the breath in the body. Connecting that to how you're feeling. Maybe a sense of relaxation. Maybe some mild pleasure in just being here. Nothing to do, nothing to say. Thank you, Nika. She's adjusting the heating. So I think we're all beginning to boil, won't we? Can you what? Do as you wish. Do as you wish. Absolutely do as you wish. So what's happening now is just a little bit of a recap for a few minutes, and then we'll have a longer sit. Last week we were talking about the hindrances, as I said, and these lovely watery images which kind of bring us back to a connection with what's happening in a way that's descriptive and emotive rather than conceptual. So, you know, these are images that came from the Buddha himself. Craving is like water in which dye has been mixed. So it's not clear, it's not yellow, it's not red, it's not blue, it's just sort of yucky, mucky colour. And that can be what the mind feels like when we're just desirous of something and reaching out for something we feel we need to complete us in some way. So it can't settle into itself with any clarity. And then when we're under the spell of ill will or a kind of resentment or any of those negative emotions on the side of aversion, the Buddha likens it to the boiling, hissing, bubbling of water that's got steam rising off its surface. So it's active, but it's kind of unsatisfactory and again unclear. And then he was talking about the restlessness and anxiety like whipped up water by the wind, great waves, and it's unsafe and unsettled. So again, we might recognize this in ourselves, where we suddenly feel quite agitated and unsettled and therefore unclear. And then the fourth one, this sleepiness or lethargy or sloth and torpor, as it's traditionally called, is likened to water that's choked by weed, where flow is not possible. And last of all, the idea of doubt, where we're perplexed and lacking in confidence about what we want to do and where we want to go and the direction that we want to travel in. And that's likened to muddy, oozing dampness where no direction is possible. So it's a very strange thing, but just bringing awareness to these states and staying with it in your meditation practice allows something to change. Of course, just to take the third one, the whipped up one that I really recognize in my own experience, when I'm wrapped up in that state of distraction, I can't really do anything with my mind. I'm lost, in a sense, to myself. And there's something extraordinary that happens when you just bring yourself back and think, there's anxiety here. You don't have to carry on being anxious or even look into what it is, like Andrew was saying just earlier on. You don't have to look at what's causing the anxiety or why am I anxious, what should I do about it. You think, anxiety is here. And something amazingly strange can happen just with that moment of paying attention. Because as you know, one of the great teachings of Buddhism that everything is changing all the time anyway. So if everything's changing all the time anyway, and it's your mind that's bringing clarity to it, it might go in an unexpected direction. But I'd be interested to hear from you afterwards and see if that happens. So it's easy to just look for pleasant mental states and then just to blob out in a meditation practice, especially in the metta bhavana, where in a sense you're giving yourself more conceptual material, and it's easy then to get distracted, to go off on one, trip to Brighton, as it were. Actually, that's not what we're doing in this practice. In the metta bhavana, what we're aiming to do is to find the positivity that can rest with our experience as it is, to see it really, really clearly. And in seeing it clearly, we can then observe change. So I'm going to ring bells for the 5 stages of the metta bhavana practice. What I suggest you do is to hold yourself and your experience very closely in mind. So you're not allowing yourself to get carried away on the stories of who it is that you're bringing to mind, or what it is you'd wish for them, or what you want to do with them, or what you'd like them to be in relation to you. More meditate on metta itself, the quality of kindness, the quality of emotional positivity, the quality of inclusion and connection. So we're meditating on the metta bhavana. We're meditating on metta. We're not meditating on a good friend. We're not meditating even on ourselves. We're finding in our own experience positivity, care, connection, concern. And I think one of the best ways to set ourselves up for this practice is to imagine that we are sitting in the presence of someone, maybe someone you know, or maybe someone who you can imagine intensely, who actually seems to hold for you genuine care and interest. So it's like you're sitting in front of someone who's looking at you like they really wish you well. Maybe you know someone like that, who whenever you see them, they wish you well. Wow. We probably have met people like that. If you haven't, then you need to use your imagination. Imagine intensely, as Shirley said. Imagine deeply, imagine intensely. This power of positivity is yours for the conjuring, if you like. This is what the imagination can do. So maybe you shut your eyes and let me talk for a couple of minutes more. And you set up your meditation posture. Yes, does anybody not know this particular practice? Because I can easily drop in a couple of clues at the beginning of each phase. Okay, great. It's very helpful for everybody else, let me tell you. Because we've all been taught this practice in different ways and we have different versions of it. It is a traditional practice. And I will certainly mention the traditional approach on the way through, i.e. the approach that was taught by the Buddha. But to begin with, what we do is we call to mind our own self, our own body sitting here, our own physical experience, our own feeling field tonight, how we are, what we're doing in our experience, what we're like. Maybe agitated, maybe tired, maybe whatever it is, it's fine. But take it seriously and give it care, give it attention. And in the first stage of the practice, we're directing care, loving kindness, interest, a desire for well-being towards ourself. And if you find yourself not feeling very kind to yourself today, just imagine that you're sitting in front of someone who genuinely does feel that for you. And as I say, as I ring bells for the next stages, I'll very briefly introduce them. Just allow my voice to fade out in the background if you don't need that introduction. The Metta Bhavana. First of all, holding ourselves in kindly awareness, finding a pleasurable sense of sitting here, wishing ourselves well. And if you find your mind drifting away, perhaps ask yourself, what kind of water is here today in me? What is the sea like around here? What's the river like? Allow your imagination to support your practice. And come back when you can to straightforward well-wishing for yourself. broadening out from the experience of well-wishing for ourselves to include in the practice a good friend. May they also find positivity in their experience. May they find fulfillment in their life. May they know the causes of happiness. a neutral person, a person you don't know very well at all, maybe even someone you've encountered in this class, someone with whom you share humanity, aspiration, and radiating this emotional positivity to that person, wishing them well, wishing that they too know the causes of happiness, find fulfillment in their life. Allowing yourself to be still, bathed in positivity. that are radiating out beyond our personal preference. We're bringing to mind someone who we find difficult, realizing that they too benefit from positive emotion, benefit from care, from knowing how to tread a positive life. Wishing well to a difficult person. Making sure that you keep yourself in mind. It's your mind that generates this positivity. It's your intention, it's your work. And in the final stage, we begin by calling to mind all the people from our practice allowing metta to be radiating amongst all of them equally. And then we extend out to everybody here, everybody joining us online. And we can imagine a wave of metta that's already existing. And we're becoming receptive to that wave of positivity in our experience, in our world, in our connections. And in our imaginations, we allow that wave to radiate out to all beings, wherever they may be. May all beings be well. May all beings know the causes of happiness. May all beings be freed from suffering. the last couple of minutes, you just allow all thoughts and intentions to rest and come back to your physical experience of sitting here, just sitting together, noticing how you are. Very important part of the practice, just allowing the mind to open and release. So that was the Metta Bhavana, and we're going to have a cup of tea now, and after tea we'll come back and look at the Atma Kleshas. For those of you who want to know what it is, it means the obscurations to do with a sense of self. So lots of things to get our teeth into there. But let's have a cup of tea first. Thank you. If you want to sit here and meditate during tea, that's also fine. So I'm going to talk for a bit. You could sit at ease as you wish. Are you cold? It's all right? Okay. It's probably better not being boiling hot like it was to start with. Thank you, Nika. So, here comes Tom. I just wanted to start off with a thank you, actually. Because you may not know, if I just turned up here to teach meditation, it'd probably be a bit hard for me because I don't know how to put the microphone on. I don't know how to get the people online. I don't know where the candles are, because I don't often teach here, actually. I might do a bit more. But we have this amazing secret team present. We have Tom. Da, 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 da. We have Kate. Yo! Just wave to them, Kate. We have Nika. And we have Andrew. And these four people, make the tea. Afterwards they clean up, they tidy up, and they just come every single Monday. Amazing. And I wanted to also say thank you to many, many people. You may not know, but this place used to be a fire station. 1976. No, in fact, I think it was 1967. It was a burnt-out fire station. And it became, through the generosity and mad hard work of a small group of individuals, a Buddhist centre. And it has been since the end of the 60s, I think. So it's seen many, many hundreds of people come and go. And I just feel at this time of reflection, here we are sitting in the darkest time of the year, looking for light in a sense, and finding it. I just feel a sense of gratitude to all the hundreds of people who've, like our 4 team members tonight, and like all the people who worked on this building, who've made us the right kinds of conditions for us to be able to turn up here and get to grips with something which is actually quite complicated and difficult. So I'm going to talk about something which is quite complicated and difficult, but it's not very big. Well, it's huge, but it's not. It's got a few words in Sanskrit as well. So for those of you who like languages, here we go. So first of all, we're going to start with a word which is varana. And that word means veils. Actually, it means a veil. So you can imagine that here we are sitting here feeling gratitude, or at least I am, which is a very positive emotion. And if I could just stay feeling gratitude, my life would be very happy, actually. Look, if I just walked out of here, I was so grateful to the bus driver and really, really grateful to the fact that, actually I came by car. But how great it is that the LBC gave me a parking permit, and at least I hope they did. And, it's sort of, everything would be quite positive and nice. And I might be a happier person if I were to live from that positivity. But what happens to us? It's really interesting to note. And of course, Buddhist teaching is about the mind. It's about what we are doing with our minds. And the sort of mess-ups that we make in an effort to do what we think we need to do for our minds. We're actually incredibly deluded about that quite a lot of the time. I'm sorry, I'm going to talk around in circles. You'll get used to it in a minute. See, this is why it's really important that we do something that's like a training program for the mind. Just dipping in once and meditating is great. Could have a really nice experience. Some people have told me in the tea break that they had a nice experience. Really glad about that. But actually, if you go home on the basis of one nice experience and then you try to meditate on your own alone, it's not so likely to work. It might work, but it's going to be much, much better if you can build a habit that's to do with looking at your mind with a bit of advice and input. Hence the 21-day meditation challenge. But also, we need to understand what's happening with the mind to really get the most out of that. First of all, we've got the klesha varana, the veil of, let's call it ignorance. That'll do. Something happens in the mind. We go back to other habits. We may have a good intention. We may want to do something really positive. We may think, I'm going to do it this time. I've got a goal. I'll follow it. I'll get there. But, as they say, the spirit is willing and the flesh is weak. All those boring, tedious, horrible sayings that we have. What do we need to acknowledge? Well, first of all, we need to acknowledge that we have got this capacity in the mind to cover things over and to forget about the nature, the luminous nature of mind. And what I'm talking about today is really an explanation of that. What's going on there? So, just a little bit of a backtrack. The Buddha told us that there are 3 marks that tell us, we're in the world, we're part of conditioned existence, we're part of life the way it really is here. The first one is that things are changing all the time. They're impermanent. Things are always changing. We know that's the case. Look at yourself. Are you the same as you were 10 years ago? No, of course not. Is your character the same as it was 10 years ago? Probably not. Is your understanding of the world the same as it was 10 years ago? Probably not. You've probably moved on a bit. Things are changing all the time. Physically, we're changing. Mentally, everything around us is changing. And that's a strong and difficult challenge for a human being to accept. Because we like to feel we're in control, don't we? We like to think, I've got a grip on this. I know what's going to happen. I'd like it to be like this. I've set my life up like this. I'd like it to stay like that. But Buddhism teaches that things are impermanent and they change all the time. That causes us discomfort and sometimes suffering when we resist the fact that things are continually changing. And we resist it for a very, very interesting reason, according to Buddhist teaching. We are actually literally hardwired to protect ourselves from suffering. So these kleshas, these obscurations, these veils that come across us are described in Buddhist theory as to do with the major form of delusion that we have. And that is that we, as a self, are fixed and not going to be subject to change. That somehow or another, I, me, Vandanajyoti, human being, am not subject to change. That I, somehow or another, am different from absolutely everything else. You know, we see the leaves falling off the trees, we see the people getting born, living their lives, getting old, dying. We see all those things, but I, Vandanajyoti, I'm different from that. I am not subject to change. Massive delusion. Of course I'm subject to change, and so are you. But I'm going to resist it because of this hardwired tendency that in Sanskrit is the Atma Klesha. The klesha, the ignorance, the obscuration that tells me that I have a fixed and permanent identity, which, in Christianity we call the soul. I've got a soul, and I came into this world with this soul, and I'm going to take that soul into another life afterwards. That idea that I'm going to reincarnate as me next time round and all that stuff. So that's a very, very big field. But I know that that's not likely to be the case because I see around me change all the time. It causes me suffering when I notice it because I want to be in control and I want things to stay the same. But they can't, they won't. So this, it's called Atma, the soul, the identity, the person, I am certainly personal identity, but we could say soul or spirit, if you like, and it doesn't really exist in Buddhism in the same way as other religions have it. So we are actually, just like everything else, subject to not having a fixed identity, not having a fixed mind, not having a fixed personality. We are changing. And of course that's a cause of tremendous joy as well. If you think it's not only the good things that are impermanent, it's the bad things too. So when things are difficult or challenging or troubling, they will also change. So I want you to sort of imagine for a minute that you have an aspect of your identity that's completely and utterly fixed. That you are you and you will never be anything different. That would be called in Buddhism an Atma Klesha, a fixed self-view. That you're completely like this and you're fixed. Not only that, but they go then into a subdivision of that. The first one is Atma Moha, which is ignorance. So Buddhism says we're born with this tendency to fix ourselves as a identity that's certain, reliable. And this huge ignorance, this Atma Moha means ignorance, this ignorance that we are subject to change. So just think about yourself and how you live your life. Where do you first of all encounter Atma Moha? Where do you encounter the fact that you're setting out on a certain kind of course of action and then you can't go ahead with it? I mean, just for example, I set off to go to Liverpool Street Station. And what do I find? Liverpool Street Station is shut. How do I feel? Well, how would you feel if you wanted to get a train from Liverpool Street Station and you found it was shut?
Annoyed.
What?
Annoyed.
Annoyed.
Disappointed.
Disappointed.
Frustrated.
Angry, frustrated. Lost. Yeah, all sorts of things. But it feels like a sort of an assault on self, doesn't it? It's like, no, why is this happening to me? And I'm not saying for 1 minute that you shouldn't have those feelings. They're very, very normal and human. But actually, it's the way it is. No, and I'm also not saying that you should be fatalistic and just accept it. What you need to know is that we are set up like this in our kind of basic nature. We are set up to have a sense of self that is going to be frustrated, annoyed, angry, disappointed, blah, blah, blah. Because that is what happens in the animal world. But human beings are not like most of the other animals as far as we understand. We have this extra special dimension, and that is we have a consciousness that can reflect on itself. I can turn around and look at myself and think, I'm getting annoyed about something here. Well, I don't need to be annoyed about it. I need to take proper steps to plan my journey better in the future. I need to, why am I feeling annoyed right now? Oh, my goodness. Yeah, that's because I'm going to be late. Well, that's annoying, isn't it? Yes, well, that is annoying, blah, 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 blah. So the story is there, but the root of it is I'm dealing with change through consciously reflecting on my experience. And that's where human beings differ from most other species as far as we're aware. If you think of a dog, for example, I love dogs, by the way. I often think I am one, really. They do suffer pain, for example. They suffer disappointment, obviously. But they don't go around and thinking, and they shouldn't have done that to me. How dare they have treated me like that? How dare they have reduced my food supply from masses to mediocre or whatever. Dogs don't do blame. They don't do, but they do have feelings, You can see that. But human beings have this extra dimension that not only do we know what's going on, but we can actually reflect on it and see why it's happening. So back to Atma Moha, the great ignorance of that we are subject to change like everything else. That's the first truth that you need to remember. In the human condition, we have the capacity to reflect on that truth. And the second one is that we've got Atmadrishti, views about things that have again been set up to protect us as a species. And we're very successful as a species, aren't we? We're doing all sorts of very powerful things in the world, whether we like it or not. We are extremely powerful and we can have a massive effect. But when we start to look at this being set up as a fixed individual right back in our basic animal DNA, we can see, again, when we bring our reflexive consciousness to bear on that, we need to be looking at our views. Are they views that just protect me? Or can I open out, like we did in the Metta Bhavana practice, to consider other people and even to, on purpose, cultivate positive mental states that include somebody I don't even know or even someone I don't even like and wish them well as a human being? Can we do that? That's a very, very sophisticated thing to do. That, to do it well, is really the activity of a luminous mind, a mind that accepts that things are going to be changing all the time. So now you're getting a bit of a picture. Here we have a basic ignorance, the basic ignorance being that we are fixed and unchanging. The second thing that I'm saying is that we will, because of that, think things and have opinions and views and stuff that are fixed in this notion that it's all about me. I'm number one. No, sorry, not you, Kate. No, it's all about me. Until we start to practice opening up our minds and thinking, Kate's actually just like me. She wants to feel happy. She wants to feel fulfilled in her life, just like me. But that's a very sophisticated thing to do. Again, just thinking of animals that you know. How many of you have a dog, for example? Nobody. How extraordinary. 1, 2.
I did.
Oh, well, you know they really love you, but they don't spend time reflecting on what you'd really like them to do and how you'd really like them to be. If you've trained them properly, they'll behave in that way, but it's a conditioned response. It does not rely on them having a reflexive consciousness like you have. Okay, only 2 more to go. Don't worry, we're nearly finished this theoretic bit, but it's interesting, isn't it? The premise is that you start from having a fixed self-view where you are number one and you are the most important thing in the universe and that everybody else ought to be dancing to your tune. So, number 3, Atmamana. This is a lovely one. This is pride and conceit in self. Yeah, not only do you think you're number one, but you're going to expect everybody else to think you are number one. The big problem is that, of course, they think that they are number one. They haven't quite got the message that it's actually you that's number one. Conflict can ensue. So, yeah, this business of Atmaman is very interesting because it's called pride or conceit in the way that people speak about it. And conceit, we have an understanding of conceitedness, don't we? Which is where you're thinking of yourself as bigger or better than others. But it also works the other way. So this kind of Atmamana, this type of fixed self-view can not only think of itself as being the best, but also think of it as, the miserable sinner, as it were, the absolute worst. Some of us who suffer from low self-esteem are pretty skilled at doing this. Being, they won't want me to do it. I won't be able to do it. Well, that's conceit too in Buddhism. It's where you're so completely locked into yourself that you're losing perspective about what you're actually able to do, what you're skilled at doing, what other people would enjoy you to do. And you're getting stuck in a sense of yourself that you judge it and you decide on your own pecking order where you stand. Okay, so it's this really profoundly unhelpful attitude to life. Okay, one more. Atma Sneha. Sneha is some of my friends in India are called Sneha. It's quite interesting. It's quite a common Hindu name. But in Buddhism, Atma Sneha means attachment in a not very helpful way, attachment to self. So you kind of, not only do you have all these other problems, but you also really, really think that you are the best and you're the most lovable and the most nicest. And that can go the other way too, where you really can't stand it and you don't find any self-love. But it's an attachment to the notion of yourself as a fixed and unchanging self. So what I'm inviting you to do in connection with the Metta Bhavana practice is to see where is it in your experience that you notice that you are actually a sort of suffering from that kind of conceit. Where is it you, just let me finish this sentence. Where are you suffering from that kind of conceit? Where you're stuck in yourself? Where are you suffering from that kind of attachment to yourself? Where is it that you cannot be flexible and adaptable in your views? Where is it that you suffer from this notion that you are a fixed and separate identity that has nothing to do with the interconnectedness that we actually all sort of feel around us, especially when we've just been practicing the Metta Bhavana. There was a fantastic atmosphere in here of well-wishing that was sort of general, really. Okay, so what's your question?
I'm slightly confused about the terms.
Yeah.
So, Atma Moha and Atma Sneha. I didn't quite. So Atma Moha is the ignorance of the fact that you aren't a fixed and separate self.
That's right. You just don't face up to that aspect of reality as described in Buddhism, that there's nothing fixed.
Yeah.
Nothing
fixed.
Nothing fixed.
Okay.
Everything subject to change. It might change very, very slowly. You know, a mountain might be there for several hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah.
Or it might be instantaneous change. But Atma Sneha has much more to do with like the basic feeling that we have that we are number one and we're very fond of ourselves, really.
Right.
It's like, when, I don't know if I've got a friend who says, I'm the sort of person that has to have a cup of tea first thing in the morning. I can't really wake up or get up until I've had my cup of tea. And even if it's really incredibly complicated and difficult to get that person a cup of tea, has to happen. You see? Okay, now I'm asking you to do a very, very difficult thing here, which is to reflect on this in your own experience. You just let me tell you those 4 things again. The ignorance of the fact that you are not, that you're not different from the nature of things, that you also are subject to change. That's the first one. And the second one is that you have views and opinions that bear that out. And the third one is that you're stuck in a kind of pride and conceit about yourself, that you're the very, very best or the very, very worst. It doesn't really matter. You're comparing yourself to people all the time and you're coming off well or badly, whichever it is. It's just as equally as unhelpful in terms of Buddhism. Or that you're very, very attached to your view of yourself. Now, anything that you'd like to question right at this stage, because I'm going to ask you to spend 5 or 6 minutes talking with each other about it. But let's see, there may be questions. And let's do it like this. If you turn to face 1 or 2 people nearby you and start yourselves off talking about it, but when you get a question, stick your hand up and I'll stop the discussion and answer the question, because your question will probably be other people's question too. Okay? So see if you can find a group of maybe 3, if you can, 2 or 3 people, and just turn towards them. And once you've established your groups, I'll set you off with a little subject again. There's 2 people there, there's 4 people there. Do you want to be 2 2s or 2 3s? Would you mind moving over? That's great, lovely, thank you. Has everybody got someone to talk to? That's it. Okay, just before you start with the basic Atma Moha, the basic ignorance that you, like everything else in the universe, are in process of change, that change affects you like everything else, and see where you get from there, okay? And if you need to ask a question, just stick your hand up and I'll come and see what you're doing. All right, just a few minutes, so listen to everybody.
When I
We have just opened a can of worms. But actually, I suppose what I'm saying here is the way to practice with this is to notice, where are you digging your heels in? And not keeping that reflexive self-awareness going. And it might be that you're not paying attention to yourself quite often. That's it. And I think for many, for me, self-denigration is a big problem. You know, putting myself down and thinking I'm this way and I'm not going to be able to do it. It's a big problem, has been a huge problem in my life. So that's the conceit side of it. And knowing that I, like everybody else, has the capacity for reflection and taking on that that's a stuck and self-obsessed perspective. It's tremendously liberating. It's scary though. I heard as I was going around a lot of people saying, this is challenging, this is scary, this is difficult. So any thoughts on that? Why is it so challenging and scary to us? Yeah.
I think what we discussed is just that the idea of self and identity. And if you start to dismantle that, then who are we? And what makes up a person? And what is our personality? And you know, it's a feeling of sort of it fragmenting and like, well, what makes us us?
That's right. And you were talking about neuroplasticity as I was walking past eavesdropping. Yeah, you know, that we can actually now in scientific neurological terms see how much change is possible for us. Yes, so things are a lot less... But that's where the Dharma comes in and says, but during this, in the midst of this flow, change and unpredictability, there are things that must happen. And this is, I suppose, the punchline of what I have to say, so I'll save it up for one more comment before I come to the punchline. Anything else that anyone would like to say from your discussion? Why is it scary?
Kind of feels like you're going to die.
You what?
Kind of feels like you're going to die.
You're going to die.
Yeah.
Well, that is actually true. That is the only thing that we can be certain about, Andrew. Hopefully it doesn't happen for many, many decades. Yeah, but in the moment it feels like your identity, your sense of yourself is... So be careful. This is really potent stuff. And it's so important, the punchline. Should I just say the punchline now? Yeah, basically... those of you who've studied Buddhism a bit more will know about the fact that conditionality, the way that things form each other, is very, very important in Buddhist teaching. And one aspect of it is that at a certain point, when you acknowledge that self-reflexive consciousness, you step into responsibility. At that point, what you're doing is you're saying, I know the law of karma, and I know that my actions in the world will have an impact. So how I behave to you, who I don't know you, but I know that you're here on a Monday night, spending your night contemplating the nature of existence, which is what we're doing. I can sort of trust you to have a sense of us as a group and a goodness of heart that will bring you here on a Monday night, you know. There's something in that the way that you decide to live your life has an ethical tone to it already, just by being here. And that when you make ethics and ethical action the absolute epitome of how you decide to lead your life, then you're starting to live as a spiritual practitioner. Because you see that, like everything else, you can actually influence things to some extent by the quality, the skillfulness, the wholesomeness of your action. So when you suddenly find yourself up against it and you're digging your heels in and you're refusing to kind of shift and you think, uh-oh, here I am, stuck in Atma Moha, the ignorance of self, you can think, what's the best way for me to act from here? What can I do that's actually helpful for the person next door, or even the most helpful thing for myself? You know, so it's where you suddenly see the way through this dilemma, this scary dilemma of how we fix ourselves, is actually through other regarding skillful, wholesome action in the world. That's where we can go from here. And that's, in a sense, I suppose, why I started off with my paean of gratitude to the people who built this centre and to the team that enables the Monday class to function, and to us creating the context, the conditions through which we can practice and start to think about these deep and fundamentally important truths of reality and existence. So we've just touched the surface of it today. It doesn't matter in a way. Just if you think, I don't know what she's talking about, that'll be fine. Just forget about it. But on the other hand, if you can take something from it, what I would hope you could take is, because we're in a world where everything is changing, because we're going to dig our heels in and insist on having an identity regardless, and an obsession with ourselves regardless of everything, that's how we're wired, we must think ethically about how we act in the world, because everything we do will have an effect on something else, probably on someone else. Do you see? So it may, in that kind of old animal brain, be the case that you are fixing and digging your heels in and being self-obsessed. But actually, as Buddhist practitioners, you have the opportunity to open out into other regardingness. And hopefully it's not only other regardingness, it's actually regarding yourself as well. That's why the Metta-bhavana practice starts with ourselves. It's so important. Does that help a bit? So basically looking at these atma kleshas, these fixed self-views, helps us to understand in Buddhism why altruistic action is absolutely at the heart of the matter. Well, it is the heart of the matter. Altruistic action is action from the heart, isn't it? So kindness, consideration, understanding, both of yourself and everybody else, and courage are really important and necessary in this life of being a spiritual practitioner. There's this lovely analogy, which I'll end with. If you know that you're really practicing, it's like you're hanging upside down in the void. And this, it's just what's holding you there is like a hair's breadth of something that's just sustaining you, and there's a great drop underneath. And as you're hanging there upside down, what do you find? Just beside you on the bank is a strawberry. You could pick it and eat it. And then you let go. Or whatever happens, I don't know. But you might enjoy the strawberry. Sorry, if you find that ridiculous, that's all right. So we need help along the way. We need the highest, most beautiful of an ideal to guide us and to sustain us. And that's why we're going to end with what's called the closing mantras. Closing mantras are a way of bringing into our reality the great spiritual heroes of Buddhism, the bodhisattvas, the beings that, the Buddhas and bodhisattvas that encapsulate beauty, truth and goodness. So I'm not going to describe them, we're just going to chant. So if you set up your meditation posture again, and just let your imagination call up the most beautiful beings that you can possibly bring to mind. Some of them have 1,000 arms, some of them are carrying a flaming sword, some of them are dark blue and stamping on the ground, some of them are gentle green beings stepping out to help the world. Then there's Shakyamuni Buddha, Padmasambhava, and Prajnaparamita finally, the Bodhisattva of wisdom, sometimes called the mother of all Buddhas. So in call and response, the closing mantras. We do each one 3 times, and you just come straight in, full voice. Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 Om Arapachanadi. Om Arapachanadi. Om Arapachanadi. Om Arapachanadi. Om Arapachanadi. Om Arapachanadi. Om Vajrapani Hum. Om Vajrapani Hum. Om Vajrapani Hum. Om Vajrapani Hum. Om Vajrapani Hong. Om Tare Ture Swaha. Om Tare Ture Swaha. Om Tare Ture Swaha. Om Amideva Hri. Om Amideva Hri. Om Amideva Hri. Om Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Swaha. 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 Om Mahung Vajra Guru Padma Siddhi Hum. 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 Gate Parasangate Bodhi Swaha. 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 Om Shanti. 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 meditating with us tonight. And on your way, if you put your mats and cushions back, that would be really great. Look forward to seeing you on another Monday night at some point in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.